Did you send the email?
Why are you checking up on me?
I'm not checking up on you. I just asked a question.
Well, no. You asked it like you already thought I failed.
Right. So notice what just happened there. Two people, speaking plain English, having two completely different conversations.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this right now, your heart rate probably just ticked up a little bit. Because, we have all been trapped in that exact loop, feeling totally misunderstood while swearing we only stated a simple fact.
Exactly. And welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to figure out why your conversations fail, even when you speak clearly, calmly, and, honestly.
We have a really fascinating stack of sources to solve this today. First, we're looking at Julian Treasure's widely praised TED Talk on how to speak so people actually want to listen.
Right, which is brilliant on its own.
It is. But then we're going to contrast that with a framework from Deru Kailo that it completely flips our understanding of human communication.
Yeah, the core thesis we're unpacking today is basically a massive paradigm shift. The central idea you need to keep in mind is this. People do not only hear what you say, they hear it from the layer where they think your words belong.
That is the whole key right there.
So to understand why that simple, mundane question about the email blew up into a conflict, we first need to look at the baseline, right? Like, how are we traditionally taught to communicate?
Well, the promise of Julian Treasure's work is incredibly appealing because it tackles that universal frustration of feeling ignored. But his approach focuses heavily on the sender of the message.
Right, the person opening their mouth.
Exactly. He identifies what he calls the 7 deadly sins of speaking. These are the habits we fall into that cause our listeners to instinctively tune us out.
Right, so we're talking about gossip, judging, and negativity, making excuses.
Yeah, and complaining is a major one.
Yeah.
He actually describes complaining as viral misery, which I just think is such a potent phrase.
Oh, that is so good. Viral misery.
Right. Because it doesn't spread solutions, it just infects the listener with a sense of helpless frustration. And he rounds out the list with exaggeration and dogmatism, which is basically confusing your personal opinions with objective facts.
So if you load your speech with those sins, the listener's brain just, closes the door.
But Treasure doesn't just leave us with what to avoid. He provides this positive counter-framework using the acronym HAIL: honesty, authenticity, integrity, and love.
Okay, so the premise there is that if you remove the bad habits and stand on those 4 pillars, like speaking truthfully, being yourself, keeping your word, genuinely wishing the listener well, your speech carries this moral weight.
Exactly. People will naturally lean in, but he actually pushes beyond just the moral intentions. He gets highly specific about the hardware of your voice.
The vocal toolbox, right?
Yes. We possess this incredible instrument, but most of us never learn how to play it.
Yeah.
Take the concept of register. We usually default to speaking from our throats, which sounds, light and airy.
Right.
But if you want your words to carry weight, you have to physically lower the resonance into your chest.
And timbre comes into play there too, I think, because research shows we instinctively prefer voices that are rich and smooth, like that hot chocolate vocal quality.
Yeah, hot chocolate voice.
Yeah.
And then there's prosody, the sort of sing-song meta language we use.
Oh, man, we all experience that physical wince when listening to someone speak in a totally dead, monotonous tone.
Or the opposite, when someone ends every declarative statement with an upward inflection, like everything is a question. It completely undercuts their authority.
It really does. And he also stresses the strategic use of pace and deploying silence rather than just filling space with ums and ahs.
Modulating volume, too.
Yeah.
And he has this strong warning against what he calls sodcasting.
Sodcasting.
Yeah, it's the thoughtless imposition of your personal audio onto everyone else. Like playing music on your phone speaker in a public space. It's a total failure to respect the boundaries of the listener.
Okay, so if I synthesize Julian Treasure's approach here, it's like I'm a sound engineer meticulously tuning my own broadcast.
That's a great way to look at it.
Right, so I upgrade my software by holding pure intentions, the HAIL acronym, and I upgrade my hardware by doing vocal warm-ups like the siren, we-ah, ooh, we-ah, and I speak from my chest, smooth out my prosody.
Yep.
So if I do all of that, if I transmit a perfectly clean signal, the listener should receive it perfectly, right? The conflict should just be solved.
Well, that assumes communication is a one-way broadcast. And this is the exact moment the Deru Kailo upgrade enters the picture.
Okay, hit me.
Because, speaking well obviously matters. A harsh, whining tone will clearly damage a conversation. But the paradox Deru Kailo reveals is that even impeccably clear, profoundly kind, and brutally honest speech can completely fail.
Wait, really? I struggle to accept that. If I'm transmitting a perfectly honest, warm sentence, why would it crash and burn on arrival?
Because Julian Treasure's frame centers on making yourself more listenable. Deru Kailo shifts the center of gravity entirely to the receiver.
Ah, okay.
They introduce this concept called layer location. This is the rapid, like almost subconscious process by which a listener decides what kind of message they are receiving.
Before they even hear the words.
Yes, they make this determination before they fully process the literal vocabulary you're using. They aren't asking, what did this person say? They're scanning for, where is this coming from?
Let me see if I grasp the mechanics of this, because we're basically talking about evolutionary psychology, aren't we?
We absolutely are.
Because parsing semantic information, vocabulary, grammar, syntax, that takes the brain time. But assessing a social or physical threat, that has to happen instantaneously for survival.
Exactly. So the listener's brain categorizes the nature of the message before it bothers decoding the definitions of the words. The brain sorts the incoming data into a category.
So the listener subconsciously asks, like, am I hearing information? Am I hearing judgment? Is this an attempt at control?
Yes, or is this an expression of care? Dismissal, threat, superiority, avoidance.
Which triggers this hidden chain reaction in every single interaction.
That's the core mechanism. It flows like this. Words lead to layer location, which creates a felt meaning, which drives the response, which ultimately dictates the escalation.
Okay, let's apply that sequence back to the conflict we opened the deep dive with. Speaker A says the literal words, "Did you send the email?"
Right. The intended layer where speaker A firmly believes they're operating is semantic. They view themselves as just requesting factual information.
Meanwhile, speaker B's brain processes those words, skips right past the semantic layer, and applies layer location.
Exactly. They locate the message in the relational layer as mistrust, or maybe the structural layer as, micromanagement.
So the felt meaning for speaker B materializes instantly as, "You don't trust me," or "You assume I am failing at my job."
Yes, and that felt meaning dictates their defensive response. Why are you checking up on me? And boom, we hit escalation.
Because speaker A reacts to the literal words and says, "I'm not checking up on you, I just asked a question."
Right. Speaker A is defending the words, but speaker B is reacting to the layer.
Man, it's like we are sitting in front of a sound engineer's mixing board. We think we only have one slider pushed up the semantic slider, the literal facts.
Yeah.
But we accidentally bumped the relational mistrust slider up to an 8. So the listener's ear is bleeding, and we're staring at our perfectly innocent semantic slider, wondering why they don't like the song.
That mixing board analogy captures it so beautifully. To understand why the listener is reacting the way they are, we have to look at the entire board. We have to map the territory.
And Deru Kailo provides a 9-layer framework for that, right?
Yeah.
It outlines all the possible layers a single message can occupy simultaneously.
Yeah, and instead of just listing them out like a textbook, let's track a single phrase across this mixing board. Take the phrase, "Let's chat."
Okay, so if a peer says, "Let's chat," to me, my brain locates it in the semantic layer, the literal facts. 2 people talking, no big deal.
Right. Now slide up the structural layer. This layer governs power, role, hierarchy, consequences.
Uh-oh.
If your boss sends you a message at 4:55 p.m. on a Friday saying, "Let's chat," the literal words are identical to the peers, but the structural slider is maxed out.
Yeah, your brain doesn't process it as an invitation to converse. It processes it as an impending evaluation or like a threat to your livelihood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the contextual layer acts as a massive amplifier for that too. Context encompasses timing, history, ambient stress. Because no sentence enters a neutral vacuum.
That makes total sense. Like, if my partner asks, "Are you okay?" while we're watching a movie, it lands in a layer of care.
Right.
But if they ask that exact same question 30 seconds after a screaming match, my brain locates it in a layer of invasive pressure. The history just rewrites the vocabulary.
And note how the physical body reacts to that history. That brings us to the physical layer. This is the tangible body of the speech voice. Breath, pace, volume, silence.
So even if your words are perfectly neutral, if your jaw is clenched and your breathing is shallow, the listener's threat detection system will locate your message in a layer of hostility long before they process the phrase.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've covered the semantic, structural, contextual, and physical. The listener is absorbing all of this and synthesizing it into the experiential layer.
Experiential, meaning what exactly?
This is the undeniable reality of how the listener actually feels the message. Do they feel judged, pressured, safe, respected, shamed.
Oh, and if they feel shamed, the cognitive door just slams shut. They stop listening to your words entirely.
Yes. And this creates a devastating collision with the intentional layer.
Which is what the speaker meant to achieve.
Exactly. You meant to help. You meant to clarify. You meant to protect. The tragedy of human communication is that the listener never receives your pure intention directly. They only receive what you project across all those other layers.
And that collision usually happens in the relational layer, right? The one dictating trust, respect, closeness.
Yes, if the relationship is already strained, your helpful advice will be located as an attack. We hear the state of the relationship first and the facts second.
Wow. And often that dynamic hardens into the symbolic layer.
Yep, what the speech or interaction represents over a long timeline. A tiny semantic disagreement about how to load the dishwasher ceases to be about dishes.
It becomes symbolic of a massive pattern of disrespect or unequal labor.
Precisely. So we spend 90% of our energy fighting over the semantic layer, our literal words, and the intentional layer, what we meant.
While completely ignoring the physical, structural, contextual, experiential, relational, and symbolic layers, the listener is just drowning in. It's playing 3D chess when we thought we were playing checkers. It's a miracle any conversation survives.
It really is. The only way out of that trap is the final layer, the meta layer. This is the awareness of how the conversation itself is being framed.
So stepping back to see the board.
Exactly. It's the capacity to pause the interaction and ask, are we debating facts right now, or are we fighting about trust?
Okay, I really want to ground this in reality for a second because exploring these mismatches requires, real vulnerability. I have fallen into this trap so many times.
We all have.
Like just recently, I saw a colleague struggling with a project, and I said, maybe you should try it this way. My intentional layer was purely helpful. I thought I was offering a semantic solution.
But I'm guessing that's not how it landed.
Not at all. The reaction I got was cold, defensive anger.
Let's diagnose that using the framework. You intended help, but your colleague applied layer location. They heard your advice as an exertion of control.
Right.
The felt meaning was, you don't think I'm capable of solving this. Advice is incredibly prone to being heard as an assumption of incompetence.
The source material highlights several of these daily detonations, actually, like a simple boundary. I need space. The speaker thinks they're in the physical layer, just requesting oxygen.
But the receiver locates it in the relational layer and hears, you are withdrawing your love from me, or you're abandoning me.
Yeah. Or the phrase, that's not what I meant. I have used that to try and offer a semantic explanation.
And how does the listener hear it?
As a dismissal. They hear, your emotional reaction to my words is invalid.
It's so common. And one of the most dangerous mismatches involves the Hale framework's cornerstone of honesty.
Oh, like when someone says, I'm just being honest.
Yes. They believe they are occupying a moral high ground, but the listener locates it as punishment. They hear, you are using truth as a weapon to intentionally hurt me.
Okay, I'm listening to all of these examples, and I'll admit a very defensive part of my brain is lighting up right now.
It's natural. Go ahead.
If I use the phrase, the meeting starts at 9, and my coworker hears a profound, sweeping criticism of their time management skills, a part of me wants to grab this framework and use it as a shield. Like, I want to say, hey, my intention was semantic. You relocated my innocent words into the relational layer. Your trauma is not my responsibility. You misheard me. Can I do that?
No, absolutely not. The framework draws a remarkably firm ethical boundary right there. You cannot weaponize layer location to gaslight your listener.
Okay, explain that.
The core principle is that the listener is not always wrong. Sometimes a listener hears judgment in your voice because judgment is actually present in your tone.
Oh, wow. That requires a terrifying level of self-awareness.
It really does. Sometimes they hear control because you are covertly trying to control their behavior, even if you are dressing it up as just giving friendly advice.
Right.
Sometimes they hear dismissal because your so-called logical explanation is genuinely just a tool you're deploying to avoid taking responsibility for the pain you caused them. Layer location is never a get-out-of-jail-free card for poor behavior.
Because tone isn't just ambient sound.
No, tone acts as physical evidence.
So if I claim I'm just asking a question about the email, but my jaw is tight, my pacing is clipped, and my chest is puffed out, the listener is accurately detecting the relational threat. My body betrayed my words.
Exactly. The golden rule of the Deru Kailo approach is not to use the layers to prove the other person is crazy for misinterpreting you. The point is to rigorously test whether your words, your tone, your timing, and your structural position actually aligned with the layer you intended to occupy.
It forces the speaker to take profound ownership of their broadcast.
Yes, it moves the entire paradigm of conflict resolution away from a courtroom battle over who is factually correct and shifts it to a diagnostic assessment of how did this message actually land in the room.
Which preserves the dignity of both people.
Exactly. But look, when you find yourself in a conversation that is completely derailed, where you're frantically defending your innocent intention while they are furiously defending their hurt feelings, you need a practical repair method.
Yeah, how do we fix it when we're in the weeds?
There's a 4-question internal checklist you can run through in real time. First, what layer did I intend?
Okay.
Second, what layer did my words, tone, timing, and position actually express? Third, where did the other person locate it?
And the fourth.
Fourth, what layer needs repair before we can safely continue?
I think the key realization there is sequence. Like, if they locate my question as a lack of relational trust, I can't fix the conversation by stubbornly repeating the semantic facts.
No, you can't.
If the trust slider is broken, adjusting the facts slider does nothing. I have to repair the trust before they will ever hear the facts. So how do we actually vocalize that repair? We need practical language for this.
We do, and the source material provides exceptional, actionable scripts that you can deploy the moment you feel the friction. Instead of digging your heels in, you utilize the meta layer. You could just say, I think that landed as judgment. That is not what I want to communicate.
I love how disarming that is. It owns the impact without abandoning the intention.
Yeah. Another great script is simply asking, can I check how that sounded to you?
That's great. What if you're explaining yourself and you can feel the tension rising?
And then you can stop and say, I meant that as information, but I can clearly see how it may have felt like pressure.
Or if you feel your own defensive walls going up because they're upset, you could say, I may be explaining too soon. Let me recognize the impact this had first. I mean, that script alone could probably save millions of marriages.
I completely agree. And when you are offering advice and it starts feeling controlling, try, I am not trying to control the decision here. I am just trying to understand the situation.
And I think there's an ultimate circuit breaker in there, too. For that specific moment when you feel the overwhelming urge to just raise your volume and repeat your sentence.
Oh, yes. You just say, before I repeat myself, I want to locate where this landed.
Wow. Those phrases pull both of you out of the emotional flood and back into a shared reality.
They do. You stop fighting over the pieces on the board and look at the board itself. And if you realize a specific dynamic with a coworker or a partner just keeps failing repeatedly, despite your best efforts to choose the right vocabulary, you have a structural mismatch.
Because better words will not fix a layer mismatch.
Exactly. You can utilize resources like the Online Layer Mismatch Check at DeruKailo.com. It's a diagnostic tool designed to help you slow down the tape, identify the hidden layer that keeps triggering the crash, and basically map out a pathway to repair it.
This has been incredibly insightful. I think the ultimate takeaway for you listening to this today is that being heard requires vastly more than just speaking clearly.
It does. Julian Treasure's vocal toolbox is a necessary foundation. I mean, we should all strive to remove viral misery from our speech, warm up our voices, and speak with integrity.
But perfect transmission is only half the battle. Being heard is fundamentally about understanding how your words are located by the mind receiving them.
Yes. If the power dynamic is skewed, if the timing is invasive, or if the relationship is fractured, your perfect words will be located in a layer of threat.
So as we wrap up, consider a recent argument you had that just kept going in maddening, frustrating circles.
A kind of fight where you felt like you were speaking alien languages.
Exactly. Ask yourself, were you genuinely fighting over the literal facts? Or were you entirely missing each other's layers? What would happen if next time, instead of repeating yourself louder, you simply stopped and asked, what layer are we in right now?
It changes the entire architecture of how we connect.
Before you repeat yourself, locate where your words landed.